Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so happy you are here today. And I have to just remind you what we're doing is we're doing this wonderful series with leaders on empowering others during difficult times. And I have a really unbelievable special guest and friend here with me today to answer our question, but let me just talk about her for a second. Jami Wintz McKeon is it CEO and president, Jami?
It's actually the global chair, but it's
The
the same as
global
CEO.
chair. Forgive me. She's a global chair of one of the largest and most influential law firms in the country, in the world. And I'm not understating that. And so she has that huge responsibility. But I remember years ago, and I checked it on ChatGPT today. It said, Jamie, that you can like read two books at the same time and that you understand them at the same time. Can you just quickly explain what is that true?
Yeah, my husband calls it my party trick. I actually like books on tape, and so I often will listen to one and read another one at the same time, which
So
is
are
really efficient.
so my first question really isn't, are you multitasking right now? What are you reading as we're doing this interview? So, but
No, I'm not reading anything as we're doing this interview. So that's what
okay,
I do for pleasure. I don't listen and read together for work or for anything important that I'm doing, just when I'm hanging out at the beach.
I love it. So let's jump in and let's empower others. If you could tell everybody, like, what was that most important moment when you decided to bet on yourself?
I think it's such a good question because there are the moments where we know we're making that bet, and then there are the moments where, in retrospect, we understood that that was the bet. And so I think I would say that in 2003, Morgan Lewis did what was then a very large expansion. We brought in 169 lawyers in California from the Brobeck firm, which was a fantastic firm that, for a variety of different reasons, collapsed. And I was one of the people who helped lead that combination. And our then chair of the firm asked me if I would move out to California to take charge of the integration of all of those people, because we were opening in San Francisco and Silicon Valley and Orange County for the first time. And I had two kids in college, two kids at home. Thank God, an incredibly supportive husband. And we'd just been talking to one of our older kids about getting out of their comfort zones. And my husband said, "You're the right person to do this. In fact, you're the only person who can really do this the best. We should do this." And so I had a very busy practice. I wasn't admitted to the bar in California. I'd never lived in California. I didn't have any friends in California. I was going into an office with all brand new people who I'd known for a total of less than a year. And I had no official portfolio other than to make this work. And so we picked up and moved to Northern California. We lived there for 8 years. And when I look back on it, that was really the time where I bet on myself in a way that kind of changed my life and my career path. Because taking and passing, thank God, the California bar, moving my children, moving half of my children to a different coast than where my others were in college, having my husband pick up and move his whole life, and really doing all this because of a conviction that this was the right thing for the organization, in many respects, was really betting on me. And I would say that's the first time when I look back on it, I really see that clearly. And I think the second time was when I was asked to be the chair of the firm in 2013. And I again had to make a decision to do something completely different, way out of my comfort zone, something I hadn't planned for, something that was a little scary, and that there was no playbook for. But I made that decision. I'm so glad that I did.
And do you so like do you think to yourself when you're taking these risks, hey, I'm doing this, but maybe because I believe in myself, I'm going to do better for other people are going to watch me do this and say, hey, maybe I can take a risk on myself. Like, how did you ever think about, like you talked about your kids, and empowering them or by example, and the people in California and then taking over? What was there part of that in your decision to do this, for yourself, even though it was risky and there was chance?
I think certainly for my kids. I mean, I think doing something that is out of your comfort zone that you know is going to stretch you and that you know is going to take responsibility on your shoulders when an easier, safer path would be not to do that 100%. I think for others, when you look back on it, those chances that you take, in fact, do empower and embolden other people. But I think what they also do, and this was something I learned that I didn't necessarily expect to learn, is that they change the way that you look at other people. You look at somebody else who isn't necessarily the natural choice for something. You look at somebody else where you want them to do something out of their comfort zone. And you have this as an experience to use and say, this is what happened when I did that. And this is why this is good for you to do. And so I think it makes you a more open-minded leader in that you now look for opportunities for other people to do things that aren't out of a playbook. For a law firm, businesses transfer people all the time. Law firms don't do that because you have to be admitted to the bar, you have a practice, all those things. This was something that was kind of outside the rule book. And so then you start looking for other opportunities outside the rule book. And then once you do that, you start looking for other people who maybe don't look just like everybody else or have skill sets that are a little different than others. And so the combination of them having seen you do it and you having done it yourself actually creates sort of an empowerment that goes all the way around.
It's interesting because when I think of you and, when I served as chamber chair and you were on the executive committee and still are, you would call me often and you would say very gutsy things like, you know what, we need to step out and do the right thing. Not that we didn't. We, of course, did the right thing. But I always love that about you is your, to use the expression, you are a true um, example of leaning in. And like, even when it's tough, but it's like doing the right thing because it's going to help others, it's going to empower others. So I totally can relate to that. And you actually walk the walk.
Well, I appreciate that. I actually think, and by the way, you made it easy by yourself showing such great leadership in such a difficult time. I think you inspired a lot of others of us to kind of step up. But I also think that, you get to a certain level and you realize that the responsibility for success is on your shoulders and you have to do what you think is right. I remember somebody asking me in an interview once, when I became the chair of the firm 11 years ago and started emphasizing things like well-being and diversity and, all sorts of things that weren't just strictly metrics, people said, well, did you worry that people were going to kind of think, we put this woman in charge and she's a lightweight because she's focused on all these other things? And I said, truthfully, yeah, for about 5 minutes, I worried about that. And then I thought, ultimately, the success of this company is on my shoulders. And I have to do what I think is right. That's the job I've been given. If we don't do well, no one wants to hear me say, well, if it were up to me, I would have done X, because you know what? It is up to me. And if you believe, as I do, that if you get everything else right, the financial success will follow, then doing all the other things that you think are important to be right isn't just courageous or brave, it's your job, failing which you will never achieve the success that your organization is entitled to achieve. So I think sometimes just being willing to stand up and do the right thing or speak up for what you believe, it gets characterized as courageous, but you're really just doing what your job is. And, I always tell people, if you want a seat at the table, you better use it. And so to me, it's just part of what you sign on for.
And that is a perfect way to end. You have a big seat at the head of the table, and we are all so grateful to you. And so thank you for everything you do for all of us and to empower us. I really, really appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to talk with you.
You too.